In this video, I'm going to walk you through some common questions and the best answers to give to those questions. But before I do, I want to emphasize that no matter what you say or what you do, questions are coming, so you need to be prepared. And I'm also going to say that questions are good. Because if people are asking questions, A, that means you're out there promoting your business and promoting your product. And B, it means people are listening to you and they're thinking about it and they're asking for clarifying information. So it's very common for people to ask you during the full endorsement script, they'll ask you, well, what is it? And you give a very simple response. You just say, it's called, and you name the product. Have you ever heard of it? That's it. Don't go into this elaborate explanation or start telling off facts. Just say the product's called XYZ. Have you ever heard of it before? And they'll usually, 99% of the time they'll say no. And then that's where you can move on to, where you left off in the full endorsement script, or start giving them a little bit of information about the product or some highlights about it. Now, another question you'll get is a variation of what makes it different or what makes this product so great. So what I like to do is I like to give one fact about the product and pick the best fact that you can that will speak to the person. And so, for example, in my joint product, I'll say, well, it actually uses a patented ingredient that is absorbed 20 to 30 times more than regular glucosamine. And then give one endorsement or story, just a very, very short endorsement. And actually over 600 elite and Olympic athletes have used the products from my company. Not because they got paid to, but because they heard of how well they work. And so I figure if it's good enough for them, it's good enough for me. And then once you say that, engage the person, ask them a question, or keep the conversation going on. And one thing I want to point out here is that in the full endorsement training video where I talked about introducing your product or giving the solution, I actually use the same, this is actually how I introduce my product, is you give one fact about it and you give one story about it. So oftentimes this question and that step in the full endorsement area will overlap. Another common question you get is, how much is it? Or how much does it cost? And again, keep it simple. It costs XYZ. And then engage the person again. So give them the answer to the question and don't beat around the bush, don't stumble, and don't start talking about the different tier levels of pricing. Just give them the best price that you can offer them and say, it's such and such amount. And then ask them a question to keep the conversation going. And if someone asks you this question, be excited because this is a buying question. This is a closing question. We all look at prices before we buy something. So this is them in the mindset of looking at and potentially buying your product or buying your service. Now, another common question you'll get is, it seems expensive, or that seems like a lot of money. Now, remember the way we answer questions. We always let the person talk all the way first and listen, pause for a second after they ask the question, and then clarify. So a lot of times I think I know what the person's asking, or I want to give them an answer, right away, but don't. The best way to answer this question is to say, compared to what? Or what are you comparing that to? And just ask them so you know what their point of reference is in their mind. And a lot of times they'll say, well, I don't know. I don't know. And that's because they have no point of reference. They just took it, wow, that seems like a lot of money. That was my very first reaction when I started taking a high quality supplement for my company. I'd taken some very, cheap supplements from the grocery store, $5 for a lifetime supply, but we all know those don't do anything for you. So when you're looking at a good product with value, if the person has no point of reference, they might say, I don't know. And that's actually a great thing because that usually diffuses their cost objection right there. Or they might say, well, the product I take now is only such and such price. And depending on the product, there's a couple ways to go about it, but you can give them a quick comparison. So what makes your product different from other products out there? You don't want to badmouth someone's product they're taking. No matter how horrible it is, don't badmouth it because it makes people defensive. All you can do is point out, certain standards that your products meet or why your product is better. And so it might be for a nutritional supplement, well, this, my product meets this guaranteed absorption within so many minutes. Does your product have that third-party certification? Or this product is made at this quality manufacturing level. Is that product made there? And so you can do some comparisons, and a lot of times that will be a great way to compare it. Or actually look at the back of the ingredient label. That's what happens oftentimes for a lot of the common name brands out there in the nutritional supplement world. They'll have so many milligrams of this product in there or this ingredient, and then my product or your product will probably have, the cheap product has 10 milligrams and a good supplement might have 300 milligrams. Well, it has 30 times more amount of the ingredients, but it doesn't cost 30 times more money. A lot of times it costs 2 or 3 or 4 times. So you can actually show the person, hey, look, you're actually getting a lot more and you're actually getting more bang for your buck. Now, if the person says, well, it's just out of my budget, I can't afford it. It's a legitimate thing like, you know what, I can only budget such and such a money with them or such and such a money for a product a month. Don't try to convince the person to spend more, work with them. It's always better to get a person started on the product than nothing. So my attitude, it's better to take half a dose of a high quality supplement than the full dose of a crappy supplement. So if the price range of $50 a month for a product is out there, they'll say, that's just, I can't afford that. I'll ask, well, what can you afford or what's in your budget? And that's a key question to ask. What's in your budget or how much can you put towards a product like this? And the person will say, you know what? I could do $30 a month right now. Right there, they just gave you the sale. Now you just have to work with the product and get them at a $30 amount. So what I would do if I was selling a $50 product and then could put $30 a month towards it, I'd say, great, well, let's do this. Let's order this full supply for you, but rather than taking the full dose, just take half the dose and it'll work out to like $25 a month. And I promise you still, even taking half a dose of this will get you more of ingredient XYZ than taking a full dose of that product you're taking. Or if it's something else, you may have to root out the objection or the concern and deal with it. And a lot of times it's just people will give you BS answers, and there's no matter what you say or what you do, there's nothing you can do about it. So if the person is just giving you any real information, just move on. You have to take your no's to get your yeses and to get your sales. Now here's one of my favorite ones. What if they ask you a question that you don't know? Well, here's what you say to them. You say, you know what, I'm not entirely sure about that. Let me look that up and I'll get back to you tomorrow. That's all you do. People will appreciate that and they'll respect it. And plus that way you don't you don't start saying things that might not be true or exaggerating the truth, which can happen if you start talking about something you're not entirely sure about. So those are the most common questions that most people get when it comes to their product or service. So what I want you to do is actually write out these questions and then write out the answers you would give to them and make them their own. I wrote out what I would say, and you might say something different. You write it out the way you would say it and then practice it. And also get with your mentor or your upline and see if there are any other common questions or common objections that people get about your product. And they can say, you know what, we get this question a lot. Or if someone asks what makes it different, I find out if you say this, this, and this, we get really good results with it instead. So make sure you work with a third party on here who has some experience, and he or she will guide you to make sure you have all the questions under your belt. And then of course, you need to practice them a few times so you get good at answering them. And remember, questions are a good thing, so look forward to answering them, because I promise you, you don't get sales, you don't get customers without answering a few questions.